Welcome back, CNR Podcast, episode 84. I'm your host, Griffin Aldrich. Alongside me, we got Tommy Martinotti up there in the top corner. We got Carl McDonald up there in the top corner as well. And then we have David Caires down below right next to me. And I'm Griffin Aldrich. Oh, what was that about, David?
Starting the new number trend, 11.
Oh, boy. You guys know it. Welcome back.
Or in this case, 84.
84. Okay. All right. We're working right here. Well, with that being said, you guys, though, welcome back to the podcast. And so we got some news looming, and we'll start it up in a second. But Celtics had a pretty decent week this week. I mean, I'm not going to say, I think we were a little bummed out, last night about the Pistons one. But I think for the most part, they really exceeded our expectations. Tommy, I think you said 4-0 last week, right? Did you say 4-0? All right. I went 2-2. I think we went 3-1 for the most part, though. I think so. But very good week, I think. I think it was a good week for the Celtics, but let's go through. We'll start off with Tommy, go Carl, David, and back to myself. What do you think about the Celtics this past week and what they did? Because I thought they were playing some pretty good basketball.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a much improved week from last week when we were on the podcast, and they kind of lost some tough games against some shorthanded teams. But the Heat game stood out to me because of Anthony Simons stepping up in a huge way, dropping 39 points, pretty much pulling the Celtics out of the, they just came out super slow in that Miami game, and it felt like without Anthony Simons' performance, then it was going to be a long night. So with all the trade rumors and definitely Anthony Simons hearing all of the trade rumors, pretty much any trade related to the Celtics right now has Anthony Simons attached to it. So for him to come out and have a game like that and kind of will the Celtics to a victory on the road against, a solid opponent in the Heat was fun to watch, in my opinion. Seeing guys like Hauser get back on track in the past few weeks is also a great sign for this team moving forward. Any production you can get out of Sam Hauser off the bench is good production in my mind. If he's knocking down shots, rebounding the ball. So I had a huge tip in against Miami to, put the Celtics up late in that game. So solid week. Last night's game against Detroit was a tough one for sure. Back and forth game. I don't really have an issue with it. I mean, Detroit's a good team. They're young. They're hungry. They have more size than the Celtics, and I think they're the one team that we don't match up great against because of guys like Duren and Stewart can really impose our bigs, I think, a lot. But, it was a wire-to-wire game, back and forth all the way. One team would go on a run. The other team would go on a run. Jaylen Brown had a great performance once again. We kind of saw Pritchard and Simons struggle offensively, and I think we missed their scoring. But at the same time, Cade Cunningham struggled as well for Detroit. And I thought the last shot that the Celtics got was a perfect one. I think that's a shot that Brown hits more times than he doesn't. So I think you kind of live with that. And, Detroit's a good team. We'll probably see them in the playoffs when it really matters. So all in all, I think it was a pretty good week for the Celtics.
Yeah, what about you, Carl?
Yeah, I agree with Tommy. Definitely a big week. Much more improved compared to the week that we had prior. And it is pretty much thanks to Anthony Simons and Sam Hauser and, of course, Jaylen Brown continuing to play at that MVP level, season that he's been playing throughout the season thus far. When you go 2-2, you see that as a bad thing. But again, you're coming off of a week where you weren't doing too well. So definitely we played very solid here, definitely played a lot better basketball here. And yeah, like also Tommy said, you could live with losing one, but just by 1 point to the Pistons from last night, a future series in the making, I would say, probably happening, this playoffs, maybe even the next playoffs. So definitely, the Celtics improved a lot from, last week to this week. And I could see them, potentially going 4-0 for the next week if, they continue to understand and learn from the mistakes that they had from this week and the week prior, of course.
Yeah, I think pretty much most of it has already been said, but really liked our resilience, most specifically in that Miami game. I think that's got to be one of my favorite wins of the season. Obviously, we fell behind as much as 27-9 that first quarter, and it looked like we were going to be going into that fourth quarter down at least 15. And then obviously we went on a little bit of a run at the end of that Miami, at the end of the third quarter in that Miami game, and then obviously we were able to come out on top. And I mean, it's just a clutch win. That's another thing I liked about this one is that we got a clutch victory. We're still under 500 in that category for the season, but that stuff isn't necessarily surprising to me, given that there's just a lot of new personnel on the team this year. We're giving a lot looser leashes to younger guys or guys that are working their way up in our rotation, such as Jordan Walsh, Namias Keita, a rookie like Hugo Gonzalez. So, young teams aren't historically, I feel like, known to be good in clutch time right off the bat. So, I can live with an under 500 record with that. It was just good to see, you appreciate these clutch wins when they come. And then Atlanta, which is pure domination offensively. I mean, we were +7 in the 3-point margin compared to them. So that pretty much speaks to the game right there. We also shot 50% from the field. I mean, just an offensive outpouring. Obviously, you can't win every game in the NBA just winning completely on offense and not playing much defense. The Celtics learned that in Joe Mazzulla's first year. But you take these wins when you can get them. They're always fun to enjoy as a fan, just seeing your team click on all cylinders offensively and, drop 130 plus points is always appreciated, especially in a blowout victory. And then we talked about it last night during the post-game show, but the game against the Pistons, it's on the other end of the spectrum in terms of a clutch loss. It's tough, and it's even tougher that this is probably, I think, like our 5th or 6th loss by 1 point this year, something like that. So those wins are always tough. And I know we somewhat coined it as a moral victory, whatever that may mean. Obviously, we went toe to toe again for the 4th time this season with the best team in the East. So that speaks for something. But it was a tough loss, but a lot of good to take away from that. So, better week obviously than last week, but like I was alluded to earlier, we have a chance to take advantage of these next 4 games against teams that are well below us in the standings in the Eastern and Western conferences. So hopefully we can, start to turn the corner, start to go on a little bit of a streak here.
Yeah, well said. And I want to kind of go off with Tommy too. I think Simons really proved himself this week in particular. We've seen a lot of good things from Anthony Simons, but, I think we've been coming to the verdict on the podcast too that Anthony Simons is a guy that the Celtics, need to hold on to because he's very reliable when it comes to bringing scoring from off the bench. But he just proved himself and continued to prove himself throughout the week. And I know we'll get into Anthony Simons later in this as well, but just super happy to see his progress that he's made. And from a team perspective, I really like that Atlanta Hawk win. Again, because that was one game I didn't think we would win. But we're able to do it. And that Atlanta Hawk game, we didn't just beat them, we blew them out of the water. And it was like looking like a similar game to in the past few years, where the Celtics, as Carl was going after like a recap or a podcast, I think it was the recap you were talking about, like kind of that Warriors win where we beat them by 50, or the Nets countless times, or the Pacers. But we didn't quite beat them by 50, but it was a beantown beatdown to say the least. But do you guys have anything else on the Celtics this week before we get right into the main part of this topic?
I think going off of what David said about, the Celtics losing a lot of close games this year, and that's very true, but I feel like it can be something that they can kind of learn from during the regular season, and kind of hopefully in the playoffs we'll see them win more of those close games. Obviously there's going to be a few in the playoffs that you're not going to win that are close. But just looking recently, and I know at the beginning of the year we had a few close losses to Philly and the Knicks. They lost to the Spurs by 5 a few weeks ago. The Nuggets by 4. Yes, they were shorthanded, but still, we're not seeing many games where the Celtics are getting blown out of the water, and it's just like a poor effort for a full 48 minutes, or they're just, not clicking at all for the full game. So I think, yes, it sucks losing those close games, but at the same time, you can kind of look at it on the flip side and say, how many times has the Celtics really got blown out this season? Not many that I can think of off the bat. I mean, I can look at the schedule and maybe pick out 1 or 2 that were a little, 10 or more, but I can't think of any off the top of my head that it's just the Celtics played terribly and lost by 20 points. So I think it's and it shows how competitive this team is. Every game is close, wins or losses. And if we're not losing the game and if we're not winning the game, it's, I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this, but if it's not a loss and it's not a blowout loss, it's normally a blowout win. So it's just a good sign to see this team's been competitive all year long, and now we're starting to see them string wins together. They're 10 games over 500 with an easier schedule coming up. So I think we can kind of gain some ground with that, having that 2 seed locked in, and hopefully gain some ground on the Pistons after last night.
Yeah, and I want to add one thing on there, Tommy. You're right. The only game I could really think of is that Rockets game. But other than that, you're right. The Celtics, either they beat the team or they lose by very little. You're totally right with that. But does anyone else have anything about this week?
Yes, Sam Hauser just had one of the funniest stat lines of all time, in my opinion, in that Atlanta game. In 30 minutes, he had 30 points. 10 for 21 on field goal attempts, but every single one of those field goal attempts being a 3-point attempts. I saw on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, he is the first player in NBA history to have a stat line of at least 21 or more attempts from the 3-point line shooting and 0 2-point shot attempts. So if that doesn't speak to how Sam Hauser fits into the Celtics offense and fits into Missoula ball, then I don't know what does.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he started 10 of 15 from 3, and then at the end of the fourth quarter, he was just getting shots up to kind of beat Smart's record, but he started missing. But it's still like he started off 10 for 15 from 3, which, we've seen Hauser get hot on numerous of occasions, but that's just, what he's capable of any given night, can win the Celtics a game anytime.
Yeah. Do you have anything on that, Carl?
Yeah, pretty much going off of, Hauser doing his thing and Simons too. I feel like, when it comes to this team, it's a pretty interesting thing to look at because Jaylen Brown, of course, has been the most consistent player throughout the Celtics. But then you'll have, stretches where Jordan Walsh is really showing up and showing out. And if he's not, picking it up, then it's going to be a Sam Hauser. And, before Jordan Walsh, it was Josh Minot. And if he's not picking it up, then it's gonna be Anthony Simons. So this team is very interesting and unique in that department where they're kind of showing off, in their own little ways for, their own durations of time. And it makes things a bit more interesting. And I feel like that is all going to eventually come together and could maybe even make them more successful throughout the latter half of this season and potentially throughout the playoffs, especially when Jayson Tatum is inserted into this rotation and comes back to maybe 80% of what he once was. So very interesting to see this team in the way that they're playing right now.
Oh, well said. And you mentioned a name right there, and he's in the title, and you guys see it right below us. So I think it's time to talk about it because there's been a lot of buzz with Jayson Tatum. And I know, we talk about him every other podcast. I feel like we'll go, we can talk about him, and then we won't talk about him for a week. But I'm bringing the Tatum talk back because who was it? One of you guys said it. What did he say to Bam Adebayo? David, did you say that? Yeah.
He said to Bam Adebayo after the game, I believe the cameras caught him, obviously him and Bam are friends, and he said to him after that Miami game, you guys lost and I wasn't even playing. So he's kind of poking fun at his old friend. And obviously there's another clip. I don't personally think he said this, but there's another clip going viral on Legion Hoops right now on X where he apparently was caught on camera saying, "I'm ready." To me, it more so looked like his lips were saying, "I'm weak," and he was like laughing at a joke that one of his teammates was making. But that clip has gone viral as well. So he's gone viral for 2 little sound bites at the end of the Miami game.
Yeah, and I want to say this. We've seen numerous clips come out, and there was a more aggressive clip coming out where he looked like to be a lot ready. But this is my thing. I laid in bed last night and I was thinking about this because it's so true. And we've talked with you, Tommy, even about like recovering from an injury, but Tatum knows his own body. Of course, medical attention will help him as well, but it's like he knows to a certain extent what level he's playing at. So I think, when he's ready, obviously he'll know it, but he's going to need medical help as well. But do you agree with that, Tommy? I want to ask you because, you've played in basketball and college level, so you've had the highest one. So what are your thoughts on that line, though?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of coming back from a severe injury like that, whether it be an Achilles, ACL, dislocated ankle like Gordon Hayward had, I feel like it's the mental hurdle is kind of the toughest part of the whole process. And I feel like the best example of that is Gordon Hayward. I feel like when he came back from that injury, it was pretty obvious that he really was never the same player. And I think coming off of an injury that's pretty traumatic, and I think Hayward's is different than an Achilles just because of how it took place and how it looked and everything. But, the mental hurdle is the biggest part for any athlete to get over an injury like that. So it's good to see Tatum having these one-on-one workouts and looking like he's going full speed, but it's also hard to tell, is that really full speed? Because when it comes to game time and it's really physical and it's not the same as going one-on-one with a few trainers in the half court. Obviously, yes, he's recovering, so he's taking it step by step, but it's very crucial that they don't rush Tatum back too early. I think now is too early. I think February is too early. I think the earliest we'll see him is maybe mid to late March, in my opinion, if not later. But there's no real reason to rush him back. To be honest, if they didn't have Tatum for the first round of the playoffs or second round, I think they could still get to the conference finals without him. And we've kind of seen why we can all think that based off this season and based off of how weak the Eastern Conference is this season. So the biggest thing is not rushing him back. He's going to be telling everybody he's ready to go. And it's really up to the training staff, the coaching staff, the professionals to kind of examine him and where he's at in the recovery process to kind of make the judgment call of when the right time for him to return to practices and go through all the required steps to make sure that he is for sure 1000% healthy and ready to go. Because the most gut-wrenching thing would be for him to come back for a week or two and, the worst of the worst happens and he ruptures his Achilles again. And then we're going through this whole process again and he's taking more time out of basketball, doing the recovery all over again. So this is common knowledge to everybody, but it's just he can't be rushed back too early, and it's just getting over that mental hurdle and trusting your body that it can do the same things that it could have done before the injury.
Yeah, what do you have on it, Carl? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, it's definitely, a situation that is difficult to really, I guess, articulate to make sense of because, yeah, on one hand, you would really want Tatum to come back with all this, videos and footage of him, practicing and training as if he never got hurt to begin with. But like Tommy said, we really don't know the extent of how well he's doing. Sure, physically he could be okay. Tatum's going to know his body more than anybody else is going to know his body, but it's also, that mental factor. There was an interview recently done with Dominique Wilkins. I want to say this was like a few weeks ago, who also tore his Achilles, a former Celtic in his own right, mainly an Atlanta Hawks legend, who talked about how, he had to really get himself mentally prepared for coming back and stuff. And thankfully, he found himself being, I think, the first player prior to KD to come back to that, major star role after having such a devastating injury. So definitely, I could not imagine, what Tatum is thinking about at this moment, even though he's doing, well for himself. And I feel like he feels like he's doing well for himself. So, like, and I'm a big fan of the Celtics, and I would love to see us, succeed in winning another championship, but never at the expense of potentially having Tatum to get rehurt again. And it affecting him, it affecting the team, and it affecting him in his personal life too, because it could go as far as that as well. So definitely, I wouldn't want him to rush himself back, especially with how the team is doing right now. Even if the team wasn't doing that well, I wouldn't want him to, continue rushing himself back. If he does come back before the end of the season, that would be great. But as long as he is 110%, that's the thing I'm the most worried about. And I'm sure everyone else here is also worried about that, and other fans and everybody else in the organization, as they made it very clear, hey, we do not want him to rush himself back onto the court. We want to make sure he's A-OK and he's feeling A-OK both physically and mentally. So, yeah, definitely this is not something to rush, especially with an injury that doesn't have a major success rate in returning to that same, level of play. So definitely, I want him to come back 110%. Would love to see him, before the end of the season. Would love to see him in the playoffs. But I want to make sure that he is, again, 100%, 110% A-OK and no complications.
Yeah, and before you go, David, I just want to say one thing. I think the biggest thing is we're getting so close to a potential return date. We've made it through the new year. We're getting closer to All-Star break. We're kind of getting towards his timeline, I would say. And there's no scheduled timeline because and again, I'm not a doctor, and as David would love to mention later, I'll save that Joe Mazzulla take for David. But I am not. I don't even have any idea where Jayson Tatum is with his injury because I'm not there watching him. I haven't spoke with Jayson Tatum, but I was saying how I was even comfortable giving him the entire season to recover. So I think we're getting closer to a projected timeline, whether it be we're two steps closer to next season, or it be we're two steps closer to March or the beginning of playoffs. I think that's why everyone's excited. And you're finally getting these Tatum videos of him playing basketball because he's no longer just in the weight room. He's no longer making guest appearances places. He's actually now shooting the ball and he was dunking in the last video I saw. So, he's doing a lot more, and that's why fans are getting excited to an extent, though. That's what I think. What about you, though, David?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there, Griffin. Just very excited every anytime we get an update from it feels like the teaser to like a movie you've been like dying to watch for like a year, like 6 or 7 months. That was not intentional, by the way. But I'm serious, that was not intentional. But it feels like you know, something has to give soon, and you wait all year going back to this movie reference to watch this movie, and you get little teasers every so often, not every week but every few weeks. I mean, like you were just saying, Griffin, that video down in Indy from a couple weeks ago where Tatum took the outlet pass from Brad Stevens of all people and slammed it home, and then this one that just came out a couple days ago of Tatum not necessarily taking much contact, if any, but driving to the hole against a trainer, taking pull-up threes, doing like a light bump on a trainer, and then hitting a step back jumper from the baseline. So that's the type of stuff that gets me excited. I don't know. We'll see. Like, I failed medical school, so I can't give like a good timeline on what happened or like what the timeline for this injury. But the tweet, I will say the tweet that resurfaced this week is of one where right after the injury happened, Tatum's dad said this is going to be like an 8 to 9 8-9 month timeline. So we just hit the 8-month mark very recently because he ruptured his Achilles in the middle of May of last year, and obviously it's the middle of January right now. So maybe it's just another month, and then he'll be cleared to go back to practice at this time next month, and we'll take the whole 9 months. I mean, there's just a lot of factors and hypothetics here. Obviously, him getting the surgery 24 hours after it happened last May, everyone was saying is going to help a lot. I mean, again, I don't really know any of this stuff. I don't want to speculate. I've even seen things from Twitter doctors saying that his recovery time for that surgery was only 24 weeks. So he's been ready since November and he could come back whenever he wants. I mean, again, I don't want to be spreading misinformation and stuff, but all I know is I'm excited. Tatum's doing anything he can to try and come back. You don't even need to see the leaks of him telling people around the building he's going to try and come back. Like, I mean, that's just who Tatum is. You don't even need to, read that online and know that. So I think it's happening at some point. I've been very clear in my opinion on this program, and I stand by it. But again, kudos to the Celtics. I think they've done a great job handling the PR regarding this injury, where right away when the season started, Whit Grousbeck said, we don't plan on Tatum coming back this season, but if there comes a time when he's medically cleared, we'll take advice from the doctors. We'll collaborate as an organization. We'll collaborate with Tatum as part of that decision as well. So they're saying all the right things. It's just something exciting to look forward to, whether it happens this season, whether it happens in October of 2026 later this year. That fires me up as well. But I just love seeing these Tatum clips as much as any other Celtics fan, because just, the teaser to the big movie we've been waiting for. That's hopefully going to be a absolute cinema, as the kids say.
Yeah, that's a great reference for it, because I agree. It truly is. And David's gonna kill me for this one, but I'm just waiting for the tweet when it says he was assigned to the G League, and Tommy, Carl, and I will go to the Expo and go watch that.
You're not wrong about the tweet. Like, he will.
No. He will be assigned
practice,
to the
though,
G League
for practice.
I know. I just wanted to get you all worked up, David, again, though, because if you guys don't remember, we even made it a clip. So go watch the video. I don't remember what podcast it was, but Tommy and I were getting excited. We're like, "Oh, Tatum's gonna be at the Expo. That's gonna be hype." But yeah, realistically, the team will be brought to, Arbach Center, and what?
Oh, okay. The tweet will say both Tatum and Tillman have been assigned to Portland, the Expo, because Tillman was a great teammate.
They won't be up at that. They'll send the main Celtics up to the practice facility.
What's the practice? Did the main Celtics, they don't practice at the Expo? Am I missing something?
No. But they, like last year when it was Porzingis, they sent the whole main Celtics team up to the Celtics practice facility.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I get why.
Are you sure they sent the whole main Celtics team?
Yeah, I'm positive, because they even every once in a while they'll send the main Celtics team up to the Celtics facility to practice anyways, like every blue moon, But yeah, they did it with Porzingis last year. So it's funny. They said they sent him down to the G League, but they brought the G League to him. So
that'll probably happen then. Yeah. I mean, that wasn't a slight at Tillman. What I was saying is just Tillman is a great team player in the sense of and that Porzingis thing last year, he helped someone who's ahead of him in the depth chart with their recovery and helped the teammate. He was being a team player there. So if it comes down to it with Tatum, and Tatum needs a rehab buddy in Portland, or whether Portland's coming to Boston, I can see Tillman, being up for the challenge again.
No, well said. And I think we'll expect that, because I think that's the first step. Or, maybe he does like a light practice, like a shoot around with the team first, but then he gets assigned to the G League for practice, and they bring the G League up to Boston. So I don't know. I think that could be on the horizon in the upcoming months, potentially. Who knows? But Carl, I'm going to give you this one because you're the one who wrote it down. But I want you to give us this next question about Tatum because it's a good one.
So next question. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. About, can the Celtics win it all, win when Tatum returns? Yeah, if you wanted to give it to us.
Really looking at it as of right now, don't think they can, but I do think they can make a push to get out of the East. I could see them winning 1 or 2 rounds, maybe getting to the conference finals. And depending on who they may have to do battle with, I still kind of see the Knicks being the ones to leave that conference, even though right now they're not doing too hot. All they would really need is just to improve mainly on their defense and potentially make some trades here and there. But this Boston Celtics team looks really good, and I feel like can contend and compete for a championship in probably the next year or so. Best wishes and best case scenario, they somehow get to the finals, and then by that time they have Jayson Tatum there. But I don't think this year would be our year just because even though we have still been one of the best teams in the league this season, I still feel like we do need Jayson Tatum. He provides with, the rebounding. He helps out even more with defense. Offense is obviously there too. There's even more playmaking and assists there as well. So we absolutely, need him. And this is something that we've made a point, not just, in the off season, not just, when we lost him in that series against the Knicks, but also when we lost our first 3 games. I saw a tweet from one of the Celtics social media pages. Oh no, Tommy. And they had said, yeah, we have all of these, things, all these metrics that I just talked about, and Jayson Tatum essentially provides all of that, and we don't have that. It's going to be a very long season, and obviously hindsight, 2020, we were able to rebound and figure ourselves out. But even though I feel like we can still get to the postseason and win a round or two, I don't think we find ourselves winning a championship without Jayson Tatum being there.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, very similar to Carl. I think that was a great way that you phrased it, where I think we can push to make it out of the East if we get Tatum back, but I don't think there's any way we can win a championship this year unless we make some crazy maverick moves at the deadline to potentially get a top tier rim protector. But I think absolutely we can make the finals this year if Tatum comes back. But I would say in a NBA Finals series, the Thunder, Spurs, and Nuggets probably all beat us. But even if Tatum comes back and he's only 67%, I think that would. I can't. Okay, all right. I broke character there. We're not getting Tatum back at 100%. I've said this before, but anything that he can bring to the table when he comes back, I think can give us, honestly, the edge potentially to squeeze out a series against Detroit. We played them well all 4 times. I mean, we very well could have won all 4 games against the Pistons this year. Talked about on the post-game show last night, had the big lead in that first game and blew it, won against them, squeaked past them the night before Thanksgiving. And then a month ago, we went toe-to-toe with them in that fourth quarter. We had the lead in that fourth quarter. And then it was, very similar story last night, only losing by 1. Those games could have gone either way if you had a guy like Jayson Tatum who, if he comes back this year, he's not going to be probably giving you the 25 points that we've been accustomed to him giving the Celtics for most of his career. He's probably only give you 10 to 15 points in limited minutes. But, in games where you're only losing by 1 to 5 points, that may be all you need. And especially just the intangible things he brings, such as his poise on the defensive end, as mentioned earlier, his rebounding as well. That's stuff I think that can take us over the edge, even if Tatum is not at 100%. So no, I don't think we can win a championship, even if Tatum comes back this year. But, the Eastern Conference is so wide open. I mean, we still got half of the season left, but it seems like it's just going to, be, open season in the East. So anyone can take it. So Tatum coming back would absolutely throw a wrinkle on that and give us a real chance to have somewhat of a dark horse run to make it out of the East.
I'll say yes. I'll say yes. Because that's my fan side of me saying yes. I believe in green. But the other side of me too, though, is saying this. Yes and no, because I think there's gonna be, and I might be completely wrong with this, and I think this is me looking at it or at more of a negative standpoint, but there's gonna have to be more acclimating with Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum once Jayson Tatum does come back, because we have a new version of Jaylen Brown and we don't know what Jayson Tatum is gonna be. Is he gonna play like he didn't skip a beat? Likely not. It looks like lightly he's going to be careful at first, and as Tommy would say, like he has to trust his body, because this is what Tommy said once. He has to be mentally prepared to put full force on that Achilles, and while running, while dunking, while going into the paint. So it's going to be a long battle, and I gotta mention that for Jayson Tatum, because I think that's a barrier too, and especially because Brown has been the guy, and Brown's going to continue to want to be the guy. I think I don't think there's going to be any tension between him and Tatum, but I think Brown, Brown's loving this. Brown's loving the MVP talks, being an all-star starter. He's not just going to want to give that up. I don't think there's going to be any tension, but Jayson Tatum got injured, and it's not Tatum's fault. It's not Brown's fault. And we just don't know what's going to happen when Jayson Tatum comes back. Do I think they're still going to be a really good team and even better than they are now? Hell yeah, because Jayson Tatum will eventually become the player that I think he left off at. It might not be right away, but I think soon he will be the player that he left off at. But do you guys have anything else to add on to that?
Got something. I feel like more narratives would be created too if the Celtics somehow in some way found themselves back to the finals, and with Jayson Tatum there winning it all. And I could see a situation where if that were to happen, people are like, whoa, you just got Jayson Tatum back, whoop de doo, all this and that. And if we were to get to the finals and lose with Jayson Tatum there, then, it's like, oh, how do you lose in the finals? You had Jayson Tatum and all this and that. Narratives will be created and arguments will try to be made as, you get into Jayson Tatum and the Celtics. Something, we're very familiar with as fans. Something that started back when they lost in the 2022 finals to a very experienced Warriors team. And even when we won, even when Jayson Tatum led his team in points, rebounds, and assists, one of the only few people to do that, there was still, oh, they didn't need him to win a championship. He wasn't, the best offensively, but that was okay because he was providing all the other things that I and David had just mentioned, and everything else. It's not just the offensive game, but also the defense, the rebounding, and the playmaking. So definitely, if we were to shock the world and pull off a massive upset like that, or come close to doing so, the way that Jayson Tatum would still not be able to win in these arguments is insane. Not surprising though, and it just goes to show that Jayson Tatum lives in the minds of all of these people.
Yeah. Well, so what do you got, David?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for sure, going back to what you talked about, Griffin, when Tatum comes back, and to see how Jaylen Brown and Tatum coexist, because obviously Jaylen Brown hasn't had to worry about being a 1A or 1B. He's just number one this season. And I think it'll take a few weeks for them to get used to each other again. But at the same time, they won a championship together 2 years ago, and then they went to a championship together, NBA Finals together, 4 years ago now. So there's definitely going to have to be some learning how to play with each other again. But Jaylen Brown will only be more of a better companion to Jayson Tatum with the season he's having once Tatum's able to come back. So that it's an interesting dynamic for sure, and something I'm looking forward to seeing. Just how Tatum is when he comes back, and yeah, I just we could honestly keep talking about this for so long. It's a great topic to really think about, but that's going to be an interesting dynamic for sure. But I still wouldn't have any other duo in the NBA besides the Jays.
I agree. And my next topic, this is like, again, I feel like the Celtics haven't really skipped a beat. They're second in the East, and it kind of seems like they're having a similar season to last year, because the Celtics, they're not even really playing 500 ball. They win more games than they lose. And I think in a sense, they're better than last year's team. And that's saying something in a sense, with the team that they have. All right, you're fighting with me. Let's hear it.
I don't agree with that at all.
Carl, you're the middleman. What you got?
I could see both points. Like, I guess from David's standpoint, it could maybe be because of the record and just overall, we had a better team. But in terms of your Griffin's sense, we're figuring it out, as we're going along and somehow staying afloat, doing more than just that, even though we're being dealt with, some pretty interesting and a lot of people may say some terrible cards here.
All right, David, what you got?
We are 100% better than I thought we were going to be. I mean, we're on pace for a 52-win season. I was thinking like 40, 45 wins. But to say this team is better than last year, which is basically the championship team that we brought back for another one last dance, I mean, I can't co-sign that.
All right, this is my saying. I don't think it's not.
Let me just wrap up one quick. Because really quickly, we've lost so much flexibility. Like Joe Mazzulla is working wonders coaching wise to get this team to be in 10 games over 500, and we've had plenty of signature wins already this season. But this team does not have the same flexibility and versatility that our championship team had, which is what got us over the edge. And that's having 5 guys on the floor at all times that can shoot the ball and can guard from position 1 to position 5. That's why our defensive rating has gone down this year a lot, from being, top 5 to now top 15, is because we just don't have the flexibility of a guy like Neemias Queta who can, guard and hold his own, anywhere on the floor defensively. I mean, that's going to come with time. We all knew that, these stats were going to drop off and we were going to regress a little bit, but, we're missing a guy like Porzingis who could, stretch out the floor. You had to guard him from deep because he was a threat to shoot from behind the 3-point line. And we're missing a guy like Drew Holiday, who, as my original point, is a guy who was guarding Joel Embiid at times in regular season games. So, you don't see Peyton Pritchard doing that. I mean, Hugo Gonzalez can maybe get there, but I think we got to give our flowers and understand that the 2023, 2024 Celtics were a historic team, and the 2024, 2025 Celtics were right behind them. Obviously, we didn't get the job done, but this team, to be brutally honest, this team does not hold a candle to that team, in my opinion, but we can all agree here that this team is performing well above expectations, and they are a lot better than we thought. The argument I will be willing to entertain here, before you go, Griffin, sorry, I'm going on for a little bit.
No worries.
Is offensively, this year's Celtics are better than last year's Celtics.
Yet again, I'm still questioning that. This is my argument, though, David. But no, continue yours though before I go.
No, just really quickly, because the Celtics are second in offensive rating this year. I don't know what we were at last year. I mean, obviously, I don't even know if I fully believe that argument that I just presented, because obviously the Celtics still had crazy versatility last year offensively with the 5 out. But that is an argument I'd be willing to entertain for sure.
Yeah, I think just from a talent perspective, last year's Celtics team destroyed this years, of course, because you had guys like Luke Cornett, you had guys like Al Horford, you had guys, geez, even in Torrey Craig coming off the bench, I thought he was a good bench player to even have. And obviously your stars out there, you had Porzingis and Drew Holiday. I don't doubt that team was better, but I think, from what we have this year and how we're playing, and I feel like record wise right now, we're sitting kind of close to how we were around this point last year, I believe, because we were struggling. And I saw something where we're like around the same range, right?
Slightly off pace. It's not. You're right though. It's not too far off. So we had by our 47th game last year, we had 15 losses, and it's game like 41 that we hit our 41. We hit our 15th loss. So you're right with that. We're not too far off pace from last year's team.
And this is my thing. I don't think the Celtics are far off of a championship. And I think this year was perfect because you are really creating guys like Luke Cornett, because they said it last night on the broadcast. The Boston Celtics are so good at developing, and it's so true. And this is the perfect year because you have guys like Neemias Queta, you have guys like Luka Garza, Ugo Gonzalez, even Amari Williams, who's in the G League, Jordan Walsh. You have guys like Josh Minot. You have guys like, who am I forgetting? Because I'm going to feel like a pain in the butt when I forget him. Ron Harper Jr. Who else? Baylor Shireman, right? Did I say him? That was the one I was forgetting, I think. But you have guys that you're developing right now. And, obviously it takes years of development. We had Luke Cornett for, a while before he became to the player he was. But I'm saying, the Celtics aren't far off of the championship. And this is adding to my point. If the Celtics get one more guy who can really affect the game, do they have a chance now? Because I've been seeing this, and I want to give it some attention from us. Bam Adebayo, we talked about him and Jayson Tatum talking. Would you guys like bringing a guy like Bam Adebayo on this team? And I even saw a trade as simple as Sam Hauser, draft picks, and Anthony Simons. And I'm holding it on Simons because I've been loving Simons' play as of recently. And I will admit I've gotten a lot of backlash off of that Bulls trade. And I looked pretty stupid after. But I think, again, I'm going to back myself up. That was shedding salary for one. And for two, it's not a terrible trade, but it's definitely, we would definitely be maybe in the losing part, I think. But I don't know, but that's a topic for another time. What do you guys think about Bam Adebayo? And we go David Carl, because it looks like you're ready to attack this one, David.
I wouldn't say no to Bam for a couple reasons. I mean, him and Tatum have a strong relationship. He's a great rim protector, and he's in recent years added the 3-point shot to his game. I guess he couldn't really help us in terms of the 5-out offensive strategy that I outlined, where 5 guys are always being able to shoot the 3 ball as much as a Porzingis did. But he gets us closer than Neemias Queta in that regard. And I mean, I don't know how he is as a rebounder. I've always thought he's a decent rebounder. So point I guess I'm trying to make with that is he's absolutely an upgrade at the center position. Unfortunately, I do not think this is possible unless we give up Simons, Hauser, and Pritchard due to the and probably draft picks involved as well if Miami would want that. But we'd have to give up a ton of talent just due to the restrictions that we're dealing with being over the first apron in the NBA's collective bargaining agreement, where we have to get, or actually, I don't even know if we can trade for him without trading a guy like Jaylen Brown, because I believe due to us being over the first apron, we can't combine player salaries to equal Bam Adebayo's salary, which I think is like 40, 50, 60 million. So we couldn't even combine Simons, Hauser, and Pritchard to reach what Bam's making. So honestly, I don't even know if it's possible without trading Brown or Tatum for Adebayo. But in the hypothetical world, absolutely. If we could try and make it work, yeah, I would take Bam, absolutely. He's change his game a little bit more in the last couple of years to include that 3-point shot, which is going to serve him well for his longevity. So, yeah, if the opportunity presents itself and we can make it happen some way without giving up a core piece of our team, 100% I'd do it.
Yeah. What do you got, Carl, though?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it, honestly. I think he could be a good addition for us, but yeah, yeah, I don't know how you would make the, money work, and really, I don't know what I would be willing to give up. Simons, you want to hold off on that just because he has been, coming into his role well for the Celtics. Hauser's kind of been doing the same thing where he's coming back to being that productive player that he was on, that championship team, and even a little bit last year too. Pritchard just coming off of the Sixth Man of the Year win, and he's starting. So would you be willing to give him up? It's definitely, more questions than a definite would I go for this now. Definitely in a perfect world, I would if we didn't have to give up so much, but I don't think we can just because of that. And also, when it comes to offense, even though Bam Adebayo recently has been, doing more on that end, hasn't really been the best at the offense. Rebounding, he isn't terrible there too. Could help out with the defense too. He is pretty big, so should be able to help out. But I don't know. Other than him, being a pretty good defensive presence and already having that chemistry with Jayson Tatum and Derek White too, as they all won a gold medal together. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that would be the best thing to do at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and Celtics fans are not going to like this, but Jaren Jackson Jr. and Bam Adebayo, they're both luxuries, but I don't know. And ever since Brad Stevens has been in the office, he's made these miracle moves, for example, like Porzingis, like Drew Holiday, and even, Anthony Simons, for example. And it seems like every time it's rumored, it likely can happen. And I think the most likely one would be a Jaren Jackson Jr. But do we really need a big blockbuster move? I don't really think so. I think I'm very confident with this team as of right now. And especially even a guy like Anthony Simons, and I want to touch up on him really quick as, and there's not much talk because we've been talking about how well he's been playing too. But I have to say, I wouldn't feel comfortable on trading him right now. I really wouldn't. I think he's been enjoying Boston, and as of right now, I think they probably were talking because, again, you saw the other night when Peyton Pritchard was out, Baylor Shireman took his role in the starting lineup instead of Anthony Simons. So maybe they're comfortable behind closed doors with Simons taking over that 6-man position too. So maybe he actually likes it, and maybe we could think about a contract extension. So I don't know, but do you guys have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's still such like an interesting dynamic with Simons where it shouldn't go unnoticed that he's averaging 14 points off the bench for us, and I think you need a true bench score on any championship team to be able to win a championship at the end of the day. We had the combination of Horford and Pritchard off the bench and Cornette, giving us 20 points between the three of them every game to contribute to the final score. I think that's kind of like that benchmark of what you need off a bench for an NBA championship team is, a collection of guys to get you an extra 20 to 25 points when you have your star players sitting on the bench resting. So we're already there with Simons almost, with him averaging 14 points. We just need another guy or two to be able to, average 10 more points between the two of them. Maybe someday that could be a Ugo. I mean, I just don't think he's there yet. But the real issue with Simons is how do we go about a contract extension with him? Because I don't think he's, going to be getting that $27 million a year, like on this contract he's on right now. What is he willing to accept? I mean, my maximum will be 20 million. That's really pushing it for me. I think for a guy off the bench, it should be like 15 to 18 million, assuming that that's the role he's still going to have if he stays with the Celtics long term. But also, Simons is the scoring we have off the bench, or I'm forgetting about Hauser, but Hauser is that extra scorer you have off the bench. So you have the scoring you need off the bench. Apologies. I can't believe I forgot about, how could I forget about Slam Hauser? So, that's the 22 points off the bench that you need every game to win when your starters aren't playing. But you also need some facilitating off the bench as well. And Simons does not do that. He's at his best when he just catches the ball and makes a decision with it, whether to pass it or to shoot it. He's not a playmaking point guard or a playmaking guard, period. Like we know Derek White can do at times and Peyton Pritchard can do at times. So I'm all for, at this point in time, bringing Simons back. I hope he's willing to come back and, continue to contribute off the bench. I think we can get him on a cheaper contract. But the bigger question for me is, we have the scoring off the bench now, but we need someone who can play make off the bench when our starting guards are not in the game.
Yeah, what do you have for us, though, Carl?
Yeah, no, pretty much like I said. Simons, I don't see us, giving him up anytime soon. He's doing exactly, what he was brought here to do. And yeah, I definitely, would love to at least pick up a center, to really help us out with that rebounding and everything, but not if it's going to cost us, any of the pieces that are currently helping us out, which includes Simon. So definitely at the moment, keep him. I don't see any, the reason to just get rid of him. If you were to ask me that like a few months ago, even before the season started, I would have said, okay, go ahead, do what you need to do. But now I'm conflicted and mainly on the side of keeping Simons for now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a big one where, again, it's out of our control if they trade him or not, but I've been loving what he's been bringing to Boston. So, but David, you had an interesting one about Al Horford. If you wanted to break that down for us really quick.
Yes, I was reading an article today, and obviously don't like to hear the news about Jimmy Butler that came out last night, tearing his ACL, out for the season, unfortunately for the Warriors. Hope he's able to come back better than ever. Obviously, he's got a long road ahead of him, especially given that he's an older player, age 37. But obviously, hope everything's the best for Jimmy. The sport is better when Jimmy Butler is going off in the playoffs, even though he's broken our hearts a couple times here as Celtics fans. But I mean, the NBA is a lot better when Jimmy Butler is playing. So first and foremost, hope he's able to come back better than ever. With that news, though, the Warriors may be considering doing a fire sale of sorts and punting on the season, given that Jimmy Butler was a big part of what they were trying to do in Golden State. So they may look to, hit the reset button in some ways and just try and figure out how they can come back next year and retool to win one last championship with Curry and Draymond at the front. So the Celtics, due to CBA rules, cannot trade for Al Horford unless they're giving up an equal amount or more than what he's making and the player that they sent back to the Warriors due to us being over the first apron. So another way for me to phrase that is that we would have to trade either Peyton Pritchard or Sam Hauser to the Warriors to acquire Al Horford, because Peyton Pritchard makes $7.2 million and Sam Hauser makes $10 million. Al Horford only makes like $5.67 million. So either way, you don't want to trade. We're not trading Peyton Pritchard for a 39-year-old Al Horford. We're not trading Sam Hauser for a 39-year-old Al Horford. The most likely opportunity for Al Horford to come back to Boston is if the Warriors just do Al Horford solid and buy out his contract. And then Al Horford becomes a buyout option, similarly to how Torrey Craig found his way to Boston last season around the trade deadline. That's the only way that could happen realistically for Al Horford to come back. And it's a pipe dream at this point. We have no idea if those conversations are going to be happening at any point between Horford's camp and the Warriors. But if Horford were to become available on the free agent market, I could 100% see him wanting to come back to Boston for a third time. I don't really think. I mean, there's a little bit of sour grapes in terms of Horford leaving us this summer, but it's not as ugly as it was the first time he left us in 2019 when he left us for our rival, Philadelphia 76ers at the time. I mean, Horford was a huge reason why we won in 2024. I hope he gets his number retired at some point with the Celtics, and I hope he's able to make the Hall of Fame and retire or join the Hall of Fame and be recognized most memorably as a member of the Celtics. But if he is on the buyout market and the Celtics have an opportunity to go after him, I say why not? I mean, yeah, he's 39. Clearly his career is ending very soon, but he knows the system. He's very familiar with the coaching staff, with the organization, and he gives us so much more flexibility in our offense, even at 39 years old, because of the fact that he's a stretch big that you have to respect from the 3-point line. And he stayed in great shape. But this just goes back to my bread and butter of what I've been saying this whole time on this show, what I've been saying all season, is that the Celtics are at their best and at their most threatening when they have 5 players that can shoot from deep. And Al Horford is that guy that can shoot from deep. And he's not afraid to fire it away from deep. So you have to guard him from out there. That opens up the paint. That just opens up so many more avenues for them offensively for the Celtics, even though Al Horford is pushing 40. But I would 100% do that if that opportunity comes to light within the next month or so. It's a low-risk, high-reward move. It helps the Celtics get better this year. And, maybe that's the push you need along combining with the return of Tatum to get over the hump in the East. So if that, this may not even come to fruition. This just may be a fanfic that I'm just laying out to you guys here in this podcast. But I would 100% jump on that opportunity if it were to become a reality and bring Al Horford back for the third time.
Yeah, and before you go, Carl, too, I would love it, too. I know this was talked about with Porzingis a while ago, too, if he were to be bought out. But I wish, but we'll see. But what are your thoughts, Carl? Do you want that to happen?
First things first, wishing Jimmy Butler all the best and a speedy recovery. Very terrible situation that he had to go through that. But secondly, would I want Al Horford back on this team? Honestly, I wouldn't mind it. This was a player who I feel like out of Jayson Tatum and out of Jaylen Brown and maybe even out of Derek White is the most important Celtics player. And it isn't just because of the offense. It isn't just because of the defense, but because of the morale that he provided to this team. This was a guy who came in originally, in the 2016 offseason, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. And not only was he a part of, that big, essentially that bridge between the big three Celtics from the 08 championship to the Jays era. He's a part of that bridge with Isaiah Thomas. It goes to show that Al Horford has to be one of the most important Celtics, not just in recent memory, but I would even say in the organization's history. He's a big reason why Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are, coming into their own as Celtics legends, and as David pointed out, is a major reason why we won that championship in 2024. I feel like personally, we do not get, that championship, and we do not see that same amount of success without Al Horford. And, of course, as David pointed out, yes, there are going to be, some issues there. For example, leaving, for a lot more money in Philly to a rival, and then, leaving us again to a team that has beaten us in the finals and that still has, their all-time greatest player there in Steph Curry. But, I don't really care about that. Personally, I don't really care about that. I see, Al Horford as somebody who can really help out this team. Whether we use him a lot or not, he can still be very valuable to us, help the younger guys develop more and really ease maybe any tension that Jaylen Brown may be going through, possibly helping out Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff in more ways than one. And he's probably already been doing that too, because, he is older than Joe Mazzulla, and, with Al being a little bit, with, Al, being older too, more than likely he's going to be involved in, some of the plays and decisions into making these plays. So definitely, if they can make it work, I would definitely love to have Al Horford back. But in no way, shape, or form, I would give up a Sam Hauser and especially Peyton Pritchard to get him back. To me, that's asking for a bit too much. So best case scenario, we get the buyout, or he gets the buyout and, he can find himself back in Boston one more time. And maybe we do see number 42 going up in the rafters. I feel like we generally can see that not just because, of the championship and the two finals appearances, but just the overall support and, morale that he has provided to this team throughout near decade combined tenure with the team. So, yeah, in my eyes, Al Horford would be great on the team, whether he is playing with us on the court consistently or not.
Well, I agree with you guys on him getting his jersey retired, but if we keep retiring all these dang jerseys, we're not going to have because dang well Brown's jersey is
Yes.
probably getting retired. Tatum's jersey is getting retired. Geez, we're not going to have any single-digit numbers.
Pritchard might be retired too.
What was that? What was that, David?
We're gonna have to unretire jersey numbers at this point.
I have to. We're getting to that route. These, it's gonna be to the point where we're gonna have more Blake Griffins in the world. All right, who's wearing 91 this year?
It will be the happiest day of my life if at some point the Celtics retire jersey number 67.
Well, the route we're going, someone's gonna have to wear that jersey. But with that being said, you guys, we're switching over to the main report to talk about your Maine Celtics. Again, go check out the vlog I posted about like a week or two ago. I went to the Maine Celtics game, so go check that out for some clips. And also go check out our recent video as we talked about Tosan Awoma. Awoma, right?
Awoma, yep.
All right. Tosan Awoma, as he is the new Maine Celtics player, so go check that out. And also, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be attending the Maine Celtics versus Swarm game. And that'll be fun because they have some talented players and some returning players. They had some actually a fun game to watch. And if you guys are not in the Maine area like Carl or David would probably be at work, go watch the game because they have some fun Maine Celtics guys who formerly played for their team, as in Brandon Slater, who played for the Maine Celtics, and DJ Rodman, who was a member of the Maine Celtics last year. But they also got Liam McNeely, I found out, in the G League as well. And who else did they have that I was fascinated about as well? Keontae Johnson from the Gators. He's on their team and he's been balling out. So that's a fun one. So make sure to watch those games. And also let us know in the comments too what you guys want us to ask Maine Celtics players next week. So stay tuned for that. And go check out the Amari Williams videos as we've been posting those. And David was our cameraman for that one. So gotta show some love to David. If Andrew was here, we'd have the clap, but I can't snap, guys. I can't snap. But David, if you wanted to break down the Maine Celtics recently, because they have been playing pretty good.
Yeah, so the Maine Celtics record as of right now is at 7-5 on the season. They rank 6th in the Eastern Conference in the G League. We'll go back to last Wednesday. They had an 8-point win in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, over the Wisconsin Herd, 114-106. This past Friday, they fell to the Wisconsin Herd, still in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 113-98. And this past Sunday, they were able to bounce back with a win against the College Park Skyhawks in College Park, Georgia, by a score of 112-103. Tomorrow night, they play the Skyhawks again, still in Georgia. That's a 7 p.m. tip-off. Friday, they're back in Portland playing the Greensboro Swarm. Next Sunday, they play the Swarm again, 1 p.m. tip-off, still in Portland. And then after that, they don't play again until next Thursday, once again in Portland against the Grand Rapids Gold. So, two out of 3 in this last week. So, hope they can keep that going.
Yeah, and again, another shout out to another G League player too. Victor Oladipo is actually a member of the Herd. Fun to know that. I wanted Oladipo to come to Boston for so long. Now we have a golden opportunity. I'm just kidding. Not anymore. But those ships have sailed. But fun to go check out him too. He's been balling. But I want to go to Tosan Awoma. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. I'm getting used to it. I gotta warm up. I'm working on it. But his debut with the Maine Celtics had 21 points and was instantly a starter for the Maine Celtics. So again, David and I talked about his veteran presence, and it's been a time where Keon Johnson's not playing for the team. He's still out with the injury, and the Celtics guys, obviously, the two-way guys were up with the Celtics. So he actually showed off and was the player of the game the other night with 19 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 steals. So he's been playing good. And I got a little clip for you guys, too. So let's show you guys some highlights so you guys can get to
another turnover. And Awoma finishes that one, too.
Gamble by Stephen Thompson Jr. Here's Awoma. In on Stewart, flings one up off glass and in.
His hands and how under control he is when he finishes. A lot of young players get.
Again, I think we could play. It was a joke. I remember that one time with Tommy where I kept playing the Amari Williams clip because it was just so great. But I've been that's a small sample size, and I really haven't watched much, and that's why I want to get to the expo this week and get to actually watch him firsthand. But from what I'm seeing, I wouldn't even mind potentially adding him to the roster. I mean, he's been a player, and I was talking about Keon Johnson, but boom, we might have a guy. And I think he's been showing off. I think this is a guy who gets a 2-way contract sooner than we can imagine, because he's been playing phenomenal. And especially in your first game, playing with the Maine Celtics, actually having 21 points and being a starter, it takes time to kind of develop into a team, but he showed off at first. So do you guys have any other thoughts on him, though?
That second shot he had in that clip, that wild hook shot, that was crazy. So kudos to him for making that one. That was all the way like that. That's like a horse shot or something like that. So that's a good clip. I like that one.
Yeah, he's a player to look out for. But I think that's going to do it with the main report. Also, probably posting this clip soon. But go check out our video. When did the 2-way players play again? They're Hawks. Go check out that, as we talked a lot about them on the recap against the Hawks, because they played some minutes that game, and it was fun to see them play up with the big guys. But with that being said, we're back to the CNR podcast, giving you a little cut of the main report. But I want to give a fun fact, and then we will go into the road ahead. A little fun fact, because again, I mentioned this last night. Congratulations to Jaylen Brown for being a all-star starter. But another interesting fact is Jaylen Brown is the tallest on the U.S. team. So I have to put that out there. And he is actually the shortest person on the team world team is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is 6'6". And I thought it was Luka. I thought Luka was smaller than Shai, but I guess not. So fun fact for me today. I guess that was a fun fact of the day for me.
Learn something new every day.
You do. But that's a little fun thing.
Shai was probably shooting free throws while we were talking about this. I'm just kidding.
But with that being said, the road ahead. David, I'm gonna have you break it down for us, because I'm just gonna have you break us down with the dates.
Sure. So we got the Celtics are playing tomorrow night, so Wednesday the 21st, against the Pacers for the 200th time.
Silly Griffin. That's the one I was confused about. There we go. All right, so
we get the 200th matchup against the Pacers this regular season tomorrow night back at the Garden. This upcoming Friday, we're in Brooklyn playing the Nets. Saturday, second night of a back-to-back, we are playing the Chicago Bulls in the Windy City. Monday, back home against the Trailblazers. And then next Wednesday, we're back home playing the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay, so we'll discount. We'll discredit the Pacers one because I think we already gave our prediction for that. No, I think we already did, but we could add it in as. I think we gave it in last week, so we'll forget about the Pacers one. But so Nets, Bulls, Trailblazers, and Hawks.
Yes, sir.
What do you guys got the Celtics going? We'll go David, Carl, and back to myself. What do you think the Celtics will be next week?
I am going to say 3-1. I think we should beat the Nets. We should beat the Bulls. We should beat the Trailblazers. I think the Trailblazers is going to be a little bit tricky. I mean, they gave us a run for our money last time. Obviously, we had that lead at the half in that game, and they took over in the second half of that game for the win. And I do think we'll be able to get a revenge against them at home. Wednesday versus the Hawks, it is a home game. I predicted we were going to lose to the Hawks in this last stretch. I do think the Hawks are always due to beat us for whatever reason every season, whether it be playoffs or regular season. So I don't know if we want to classify that as a trap game, but I'm going to go 3-1.
What do you got, Carl?
You know what? Be optimistic this time. Say 4-0.
4-0. All right.
Let's
All
go.
right.
I think there'll be close games, especially with Portland and Atlanta, but definitely I'll say 4-0 for now.
You know, I'm gonna go right with you, Carl. I'm going 4-0. I'm trying to be optimistic this week because I said the Celtics were gonna lose against the Hawks, but I think they beat them. They totally beat them on that one. So I gotta give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'll go 4-0 too. Let's go. So 3-1 and 4-0. 4-0. Let's go. But do you guys have any final thoughts before we close out?
No, just keep, good opportunity to go on a winning streak here. So Celtics, as we've been talking about all season, just got to take advantage of winning these games against the teams we should beat. We've kind of struggled with that at times this season. So this is a good opportunity here over these next 5 games to take advantage of that. So, hopefully we can do that and get back on a roll. And if this video gets 67 likes, I will stop making 6-7 references for 6 or 7 videos.
Smash that like button. Smash that like button. Andrew, that's what Andrew would be saying. Andrew's like, yeah, Carl's like, Oh, I love it. Let's make this one go viral for David. But any final thoughts, Carl?
Figure out how to close out the games. That's all I gotta say.
Well said. And for my final thought, let the Tatum return come soon. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications to be notified every time we upload again. Make sure to tune in for the lives, for the recaps, and also make sure to stay updated with the podcast as we talk about breaking and related news. And we will see you guys with the next one. Peace, guys.
See you.
Later.